Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you try, you just can't seem to find that true sense of peace? Are there days when you smile at the world, but inside you feel empty, anxious, and unsettled without anyone even knowing? And what if there were a path, not one that requires changing your whole life, but simply changing how you see, that could bring you back to yourself? Would you take it? Let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly lived without worry? Not pretending, not smiling to cover the pain, but genuinely feeling light, present, and free. For many of us, happiness feels conditional. We think we need to achieve something, reach a certain goal, or get to a perfect place before we're allowed to feel joy. But that moment rarely comes. Life is full of imperfections. In Buddhism, there's a deep truth. Peace doesn't come from the future. It only exists when we stop running, stop resisting, and return to this moment. If you're tired of living in your head, constantly analyzing, overthinking, and imagining the worst, then what you're about to hear might just be the gift your soul has been waiting for. Lesson 1. The present moment is the only safe place you truly have. One of the most powerful teachings in Buddhism is that true freedom and peace can only be found in the present moment. It may sound simple, but once you truly understand this, everything changes. The past is gone. It lives only in memory. The future hasn't arrived. It exists only in imagination. But anxiety doesn't care. It pulls you into a mental world filled with what-ifs, maybes, and worst-case scenarios. Your mind starts building imaginary disasters, and before you know it, you believe danger is lurking around every corner, even when in reality, you're safe and sound, sitting right here. Worse still, your body starts reacting as if those imagined events are actually happening. You tense up. Your heart races. Your thoughts spin. All because you're living inside a future that doesn't yet exist. That's the power of thought. It can steal the peace that's already here. But something amazing happens the moment you bring your awareness back to what's actually real. Your breath flowing in and out, the feeling of your feet touching the ground, the subtle sounds around you. Suddenly, your nervous system begins to calm. Your chest loosens. Your mind quiets. Because the present moment isn't just an idea, it's a real place, a refuge. It's the only space where life is actually happening. Everything else is just noise. And here's the most important part. Worry cannot survive when you're truly present. Worry lives in the imagination, but it fades when you return to reality. In this exact moment where you're breathing and grounded, there's no room for fears that haven't even happened yet. Of course, your mind won't give up easily. It might still whisper, "What if something bad happens tomorrow?" But you can gently respond, "I don't need to solve tomorrow right now. I am breathing. I am safe." And that's enough. Over time, returning to the present becomes not just a skill, but a lifeline. A quiet, steady habit that anchors you when life gets overwhelming. It's not just coming back. It's coming alive, because you weren't born to live in fear. You were born to fully inhabit this moment, to breathe it in, to experience it completely. Not to fear what might be, but to live what already is. Lesson 3. Acceptance isn't giving up. It's opening your heart so you can breathe. Many people mistake acceptance for surrender. They believe that when you accept something difficult, it means you've given up, become weak, or have lost to fate. But Buddhism teaches the opposite. Acceptance isn't helplessness. It's the act of releasing the exhausting need to control everything. Because clinging too tightly is often the very root of suffering. Think about the times you've resisted reality. A failure, a breakup, an unexpected setback. In those moments, it wasn't the event itself that crushed you, but your inner struggle against it. You were fighting hard to deny what was already true. And that internal resistance, that's what drained you. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of what's happening. It doesn't mean you've given up hope. It simply means you stop denying what is. You stop wishing things were different and begin looking reality in the eye, even when it's not the version you wanted. And then something beautiful happens. When you stop resisting, you begin to breathe again. You're no longer like someone flailing in a river's current, fighting the flow. Your heart begins to soften. Your shoulders relax. And you realize this gentle surrender is actually the beginning of real strength, a strength that comes from within. Think back to your hardest moments. Chances are, it wasn't the situation alone that caused the most pain. It was your inability to let go. A relationship ends, and instead of allowing yourself to grieve and heal, you replay it over and over. You ask why you imagine different outcomes. You cling to what can't be changed, as if enough worry could rewrite the past. But it can't. And the more you resist reality, the more trapped you become in your own suffering. The truth is, we often suffer most not because of what happens, but because we fight it so hard. And the moment you stop arguing with reality, when you allow yourself to feel what you feel without judgment, shame, or suppression, that's when true healing begins. Acceptance doesn't mean giving up on your goals or your growth. It simply means you no longer set conditions on your peace. You don't need everything to be perfect in order to feel okay. And over time, you begin to see that peace is not the reward of a flawless plan. It's a natural state that arises when you stop demanding life to go your way. When you accept, you create space, a quiet internal room where clarity can enter. You're no longer driven by panic or fear. Instead, you respond from understanding. You move forward, not to control the outcome, but because you trust the journey. You realize you don't have to win at life, you just have to walk with it. Lesson 4. Not every thought deserves your attention or your belief. The human brain is a brilliant tool, but it can also be a very loud one. Each day, thousands of thoughts rush through your mind. Some are helpful, some are repetitive, and many are born from fear, doubt, and insecurity. One of the core insights in Buddhism is this: you are not your thoughts. It sounds simple, but once you truly get it, your entire relationship with your mind changes. Just because a thought appears doesn't mean it's true. And it definitely doesn't mean you have to believe it. Worry often begins with a tiny whisper. What if something bad happens? And if you don't catch it in time, that one thought can spiral into a whole movie of imagined disasters. You feel uneasy, unsafe, on edge, even though nothing has actually happened. That's the trap when you believe every thought you get pulled away from reality and into a world of imagined fears. You get stuck in emotions that your mind has created, not because life is truly that scary, but because you haven't learned to separate fact from fiction. Buddhism compares the mind to the sky and thoughts to passing clouds. Some clouds are light and gentle, others are dark and heavy. But the most important truth is none of them last forever. They come and go. And if you're calm enough to pause and observe without clinging or resisting, you'll start to notice something beautiful. There's always a vast, peaceful space behind those clouds. No cloud can ever alter the nature of the sky. Whether it's a soft, white cloud or a raging storm, the sky remains vast and unchanged. In the same way, your true self, your inner awareness, is never disturbed by the fleeting thoughts that pass through your mind. Once you begin observing your thoughts, instead of being swept away by them, you enter a state called mindfulness. You're no longer blindly following every thought. You start to see them for what they are: temporary waves of mental activity, not absolute truths. So when your mind whispers things like, "I'm not good enough," or "I'll never get through this," you don't need to panic or argue. You simply pause breathe and gently say to yourself, "This is just a thought. It's not the truth." You are not obligated to believe everything your mind tells you. Even just one moment of recognition like that is enough to interrupt the emotional spiral. And over time, you begin to build a healthy space between yourself and your thoughts. You no longer feel like a helpless victim to every anxious impulse. You begin to feel a new kind of freedom, not because your mind has gone silent, but because you've stopped blindly obeying every story it tells. With regular practice, peace slowly becomes your natural state. Thoughts will still arise. That's human. But they no longer carry the same weight. You'll watch them pass like clouds in the sky and return to the quiet center within you, where you're grounded, calm, and truly yourself. This is the essence of mindfulness, learning to live with awareness rather than reactivity. It teaches you to stand steady in yourself, not to be pulled in every direction by your thoughts. And once you touch that inner stillness, anxiety no longer controls you. You become calm, clear, and centered, not because life is perfect, but because your mind no longer needs it to be. Lesson 5. Impermanence. Fear doesn't last forever. One of the most profound and liberating truths in Buddhism is the concept of impermanence, the understanding that everything in life is constantly changing. Nothing stays the same. People grow, emotions shift, circumstances evolve. Just like the changing seasons, every experience, whether joyful or painful, will eventually pass. Yet when fear or anxiety takes hold, it can feel like it will never end. It consumes your mind and convinces you that you'll always feel this stuck, this tense, this overwhelmed. But the truth is, no feeling lasts forever. Even the most intense fear will fade, just like all those moments in your past when you thought you couldn't make it. And yet you did. Think back to the nights you were terrified, the days you were heartbroken or lost, the moments when breathing felt hard and everything seemed uncertain. At the time, you may have thought, "I'll never get through this." But look at you now. You did. You're still here, still breathing, still growing stronger, wiser, and more resilient with each passing storm. That alone proves a powerful truth. Emotions, no matter how overwhelming, are always temporary. Even the deepest pain has a lifespan. And once you begin to see your emotions as passing waves, rather than permanent fixtures, you stop identifying with them. You no longer say, "I am anxious." You begin to say, "I am feeling anxiety," and it will pass. That small shift in thinking can completely transform your inner experience. When you forget that everything is impermanent, fear takes over. You start believing, "I'll always feel this way, always in pain, always anxious, always stuck." But the moment you remember that everything passes, something opens inside you. You stop identifying with the suffering. You begin to see it for what it is: a visitor, not a permanent part of you, just something passing through. And this isn't just a comforting idea. It's the truth of nature, of the universe, and of your own being. Storms eventually pass. Long nights always give way to dawn. Even the heaviest emotions will soften with time if you're patient enough to stop fighting them. Once you understand this, you start meeting your emotions with more gentleness. You no longer try to snap out of sadness or force yourself to feel better right away. Instead, you allow yourself to sit quietly with whatever you're feeling, like sitting beside a friend in pain. You don't try to fix it. You don't deny it. You're simply present. Emotions rise, peak, and also like the tide. You learn to breathe through them instead of battling them. You no longer panic when you feel vulnerable. Instead, you trust the process of healing because now you know you're not stuck. You're simply passing through a temporary chapter. And that chapter is already moving on. So the next time worry shows up, your heart racing, your mind spiraling, pause. Place a hand over your chest. Feel your heartbeat. And gently remind yourself, this is just a moment. It won't last. I've been through so many storms before, and I'll get through this one too. That quiet reminder, spoken with awareness and compassion, can bring deep peace to your soul. Because when you stop being afraid of fear itself and begin trusting in life's impermanence, peace will naturally return to you. When you finally stop gripping so tightly, when you stop trying to make everything go your way, an inner stillness begins to emerge. And no storm outside of you can shake it. Lesson 6. Let go of control, because it was never yours to begin with. One of the biggest sources of anxiety is the illusion of control. We try to plan everything down to the smallest detail, anticipate every risk, think through every possible scenario, believing that if we just do enough, plan enough, think hard enough, we can prevent anything bad from happening. That we can keep everything and everyone in perfect order. But the truth is, life doesn't follow our scripts. No matter how well you prepare, there will always be things beyond your control, the decisions of others, unexpected events, shifting circumstances, even your own emotions. And the more you try to control everything, the more exhausted, anxious, and disappointed you feel. Buddhism invites us to try a different way of living. Act with awareness. Make wise choices. Give your best. And then let go of the outcome. It means you show up fully. Care deeply. Take responsibility for your part. But after that, you loosen your grip. You trust that the current of life will carry you where you need to go, even if the path looks different from what you imagined. Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you quit. In fact, it's a sign of emotional maturity, of knowing that inner peace is more important than outer perfection. Ask yourself, how many sleepless nights have you spent thinking about things you can't undo? How many times have you drained your energy over worries that never even came true? All of that stress changed nothing except for making you feel worn out. The truth is, you cannot control the future through fear. You shape your future not by overthinking it, but by showing up fully in the present, acting with wisdom and trusting deeply. Once you truly understand that a weight lifts, you begin to breathe deeper, walk more lightly, and live more simply. Letting go of control also means letting go of the idea that says, I have to be perfect for things to go right. You don't. You don't need to become a flawless version of yourself. There will be missteps. There will be mistakes. And all of it is part of the journey. Things will change. Plans will fall apart. But instead of fighting that reality, you begin to make peace with uncertainty. You stop needing everything to be clear and certain. Instead, you place your trust in something deeper, a natural intelligence behind life, a quiet order behind the chaos. That trust becomes your anchor during times of change. You no longer need all the answers. You simply come back to yourself and ask, am I showing up with presence and sincerity? If the answer is yes, then let the rest unfold. Give life some breathing room. Let others be who they are without trying to fix or control them. And most of all, give yourself permission not to have it all figured out. True freedom isn't about escaping reality. It's about sinking into it more fully, being fully present with a wide open heart. When you stop pouring your energy into grasping what's beyond your reach, you begin to live with more compassion, more clarity, and more peace. Lesson 7. Be kind to the voice inside you that worries. Inside each of us lives a small, anxious voice. It shows up in quiet moments when you're alone with your thoughts. It whispers things like, can I really handle this? What if everything falls apart? That voice isn't trying to hurt you. It's not cruel. In fact, it believes it's protecting you from disappointment, danger, or heartbreak before it even happens. But when that voice gets too loud for too long, it keeps you in a state of constant alert. You become tense, uneasy, and always bracing for the worst. Instead of keeping you safe, it ends up stealing your ability to be present. Buddhism teaches us compassion, not just toward others, but toward the most fragile parts of ourselves. Instead of silencing that anxious voice or getting angry with it, you can learn to approach it the way you would a scared child, gently, kindly, patiently. You don't need to push it away or shut it down. Just pause and say, I hear you. I know you're afraid. I know you're trying to keep me safe. But right now, we are okay. Even a single moment of speaking to yourself that way can calm the storm inside. And over time, you begin learning how to live alongside that voice, not letting it lead you, but also not denying its presence. You become a kind companion to your own mind. You don't need to panic every time fear shows up. Just stop. Take a slow, deep breath. Then take another gentle step forward. When you stop blaming yourself for being anxious and meet your worry with kindness, something profound happens. That fearful voice begins to soften. It no longer has to scream to be heard, because it's finally being listened to. For most of us, the inner voice grows loud, not because it's powerful, but because it's been ignored for too long. But when you respond to it with presence and tenderness, you create a new space inside a space safe enough for fear to exist, without controlling you. From that space, you begin to build a new relationship with yourself, one based not on control, but on trust. This doesn't mean you let fear take over, or that you surrender to your anxiety. It means you become a calm guide, a compassionate teacher, standing beside a worried child. You stop asking, "Why am I like this?" And instead, you say, "This feeling is real, and I can still move forward." That's the heart of Buddhist self-compassion, meeting yourself with mindfulness and gentleness, rather than running away or blaming yourself. As you practice this regularly, the voice that once made you anxious begins to quiet. Not because the outside world has changed, but because your relationship with your own mind has healed. You no longer fight against yourself to grow. You learn to hold yourself gently through the process of growth. And that kind of kindness is not weakness. It's the deepest kind of strength. Because when you can sit calmly beside your own fear without running from it, you are finally free. And then you'll realize joy is not a reward for a perfect life. It's a practice, a choice, a way of being that you can begin right now. Many people spend their whole lives chasing happiness as if it were something they have to earn. They say, "I'll be happy once things settle down. I'll feel joy when the anxiety is gone. When everything is finally in place, then I'll allow myself peace." But that day rarely comes, because the truth is, there's always something unfinished, always change, always uncertainty. Life, by its very nature, is imperfect. If you keep waiting for everything to be fixed before you let yourself enjoy life, you may wait forever. Buddhism gently reminds us joy isn't something you stumble upon, and it's not reserved for the lucky. It's a seed already planted inside you, just waiting to be nurtured each day through awareness, gratitude, and compassion for yourself. True joy is quiet. It doesn't need to be loud laughter, grand celebrations, or big moments. Sometimes it's simply standing still in the morning sun, listening to the wind in the trees, sipping tea in silence, or just noticing the rise and fall of your breath and realizing you're alive. These are the small sacred doors through which happiness enters. Not because life is perfect, but because you've chosen to be present with it just as it is. One of the most profound shifts in Buddhist thought is realizing this. You don't have to fix everything in your life before you're allowed to feel peace. You simply have to stop believing that happiness must be postponed. You don't need every fear to vanish before you smile. You don't need all the answers to feel calm. You don't need every wound to be healed before you can feel joy. Joy already exists right here in this moment. And when you learn how to touch it, even when life is messy, something sacred happens. You begin to reclaim your inner power. Practicing joy is an act of courage. It's how you train your mind to notice the good even when everything isn't perfect. It's how you pause to be grateful for things that seem small. It's how you allow yourself to soften, breathe, and smile even in uncertainty. Little by little, this becomes a way of life. And slowly, the anxiety that used to dominate your mind begins to fade. Not because you forced it away, but because you've taught your mind a new way to see. You begin to realize life doesn't have to be perfect to be beautiful. You don't need to solve everything to feel love. And sometimes the most profound happiness is simply being here, fully present, with an open heart, ready for whatever this moment brings. When you live like this, gently, Slowly, day by day, you discover a simple but powerful truth. Happiness was never far from you. It was just waiting for you to stop chasing and start noticing. Noticing each breath, each moment, each small, honest thing. And in that noticing, you stop living from fear or control, and you begin living from something deeper, from gratitude, from awareness, from a heart that is finally at home. If you've stayed with us this far, thank you for giving yourself the gift of stillness, of reflection, of healing. Happiness isn't out there somewhere. It's here right now, within your breath, within this moment, if you're willing to return to it. If this video spoke to you, tap like to help spread this peaceful message. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this gentle journey toward mindfulness and inner calm. If you know someone who could use a quiet reminder like this today, share this video with them. Sometimes, just a few minutes of stillness can soothe an entire soul.